Hello everyone, I hope you're doing alright, I hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Firstly, my apologies for all this rubbish and stuff in the background. As I've said to you before, the house is being used for a multitude of purposes at the moment, and yes, it's becoming a little bit cluttered, to be completely honest with you. Also, the reason there's so much crap in the background is because I wasn't actually planning to make a video today, but I've been scrolling through a few of my comments. Thank you as always for those, and like I say, I don't always get back to everyone. But I was scrolling through my comments, and one in particular really struck a chord with me, and I thought I'd sort of address it directly. But before I go in and talk about that one, another one that I quickly clocked just before I clicked record this morning, someone was saying that they have a gambling problem. They're in the process of recovery, and what they're doing is they're handing over their finances to their partner, but they're being allowed a very small amount of money in order to put down football whackers at the weekend, because that's something they enjoy, something that, like myself, they don't believe they really have a problem with, as their real gambling problems laid elsewhere and with other forms of gambling. So they figure that if they can have a small football whacker, it keeps the interest, it keeps the sport a bit more interesting, it gives them something to do on a weekend, and they don't really see it as a huge problem. And they did, to be fair, ask what's my opinion. Do I think this is sort of setting themselves up for a fall? Now, my honest opinion is I don't know. The honest opinion is that I thought about this. This is actually something that I considered doing, just having a small amount each weekend to put on sports bets, to put on a little bit of football hackers, but mostly on the darts. I like watching darts, and that used to be a bit more fun with a bit of a bet involved. When I started this round of recovery, I decided that I wouldn't do that initially. I wouldn't have any money to bet on anything initially, and because this was the official party line. I've spoken in the last couple of videos actually about how I decided that I wasn't going to follow the normal prescribed course of recovery. I was going to try and do it my own way, and how I discovered in due course and after many failures that my own way was indeed a terrible way to try and quit gambling. So I conceded defeat, and I went by the book, so to speak, with all the blocks and restrictions and cold turkey and avoidance and all the rest of it that was generally recommended by the experts. And I started that way. I started by not having any sports betting, not allowing myself that little acca, that little darts bet that I thought I'd allow myself in due course. And if I'm completely honest, I never went back. I never actually tried to have that little flutter. And I do genuinely, it might be a foolish errand, right? But I do generally in my brain think I could have a small bet on sports and it not have an impact on my recovery as a whole. I could have a little bet on the darts or a little bet on the football at the weekend, and it wouldn't cause a lapse, it wouldn't cause a relapse, it wouldn't cause a return to old ways. However, I am this far into my recovery. I'm this far into a successful recovery. I'm doing well. I'm reasonably happy-ish, as happy as you can be when you can't go to the pub. I'm a lot healthier than I have been before. So I would suggest, for me at least, not risking upsetting the apple cart, so to speak, not risking breaking that for the sake of a little bit extra enjoyment from a sports actor or whatever. So thank you for your question. I'm sorry that hasn't really given you a bona fide answer. I guess in short, the answer is I don't know, but the experts would say avoid gambling at all costs. And I can see there's logic in that. As I spoke to you before when I talked about this channel and how this developed, was it initially this channel caused me to lapse, and the reason it caused me to lapse is because it kept gambling at the forefront of my mind. And I'm concerned that if you continue to have a little bet, a little wager, even if it's affordable, even if it's controlled, even if it's monitored by your partner, then that does keep gambling very active in your mind and might lead to further gambling, which would then involve deception and all the other sorts of things. So I guess my advice would be to avoid it, but everyone's recovery is different, and it's not for me to tell you what to do, to be completely honest. That took a little bit longer than expected, but I want to now talk about the main topic of today's video. A guy messaged me and put a comment in my on one of my videos and said, look, I've been 2 months gamble free now. I'm 2 months into my recovery. Firstly, very well done in 2 months. That is actually part of the hardest period done and dusted for you. But he said he's finding everything a little bit boring without gambling. He's finding life quite dull and finding it hard to sort of see the point. I'm paraphrasing, but kind of, is life all it's cracked up to be? Is there, is life without gambling kind of worth living? And my apologies if I'm sort of putting words into your mouth here. Firstly, I'll say I haven't scripted any of this video, so I will literally just give you my thoughts and feelings as they come off the top of my head. Still insulated by this rather lovely mop of hair here. And I will firstly say that I totally understand. I totally get you. First few months of my recovery, you're not out the woods yet, I'm sorry. First few months of my recovery, I was bored. I couldn't see a life without gambling long term because, and I think the main reason was because I'd built gambling into so many elements of my life. Going to see my mates, well, we might sit around his house and have a little punt online. Chilled in the evening, maybe I'll have a little go on the online casinos. Sat in the pub at the weekend watching the football, well, obviously I'll have money on that, won't I? Going out with your mates, well, there's always a fruit machine to play. So I had involved gambling in some form or another in every part of my life. So in any part of my life that, happened post-gambling, so to speak, it always felt that there was an element missing. I was watching QPR Derby, and suddenly I realised that I didn't care. No offence to any QPR or Derby fans, but I realised that actually I'm watching this football match and I don't care about the result. I don't care about the football. I'm not interested. And the fact of the matter is I'm not interested in the game. And it's not more dull because I'm not betting. It was only interesting, and I use the term loosely, because I was interested in betting. The football was an irrelevance. It was just something to bet on. I might as well have been staring at a roulette wheel or staring at the reels of a slot. So there's that. Then there's the pub or something like that. I'm using the pub because, in case you haven't realised, I'm quite a fan of going to the pub. And you think, well, not being able to play the fruit machine, again, not having a bet on the sport that you're watching, that removes an element, so you feel a bit more empty. Also, and this I think is probably a more important fact, is that when you start your recovery, when you first quit gambling, your brain, and I'm using this in experience terms rather than medical terms, is very used to quick hits of dopamine and of adrenaline. And it's absolutely terrible at deferring satisfaction and deferring gratification. This is why cross-addiction is such a problem, that if you remove one addiction from your life, say gambling, you might then seek that addiction in another way that provides a quick fix, that stops you from having to defer satisfaction, defer gratification, do the hard things that give you a positive outcome in the long run. So you might start drinking recreational drugs. People develop things like porn addictions, because these are all things that, I must admit, that all in moderation are fine, but they're all things that offer a short-lived but instantaneous hit of adrenaline, hit of dopamine, hit of endorphins. And that's why people generally bounce from one addiction to the other. But it's also the reason, because you're used to these mental highs, mental lows, and the dopamine from the suspense between betting and between the result, you become hooked on that actually doing anything, any hobbies, any interests that take longer to accomplish a result and don't give you that hit become boring. It seems like there's no appeal. The payoff is too far in the distance. Sitting down and reading a book, be it a novel or be it a self-help book or just a book like an autobiography or something that you're interested in, there's no instant payoff. The payoff is in the involvement. The payoff is in the long term, and our brains are conditioned for a short-term payoff. I won't get too dug down in the psychology of it because I'm not an expert, but what I will say is this, and actually I will counteract your point entirely with one statement. I'm waiting for delivery today, and coming in my delivery today is a soldering iron. Now that in itself doesn't mean an awful lot, But what it does mean is that now I'm looking forward to this soldering iron arrives, because I've got a weekend this weekend where I've got a bit of time and I can sit on and move on with some of these projects. You can see a couple of them over the corner there that I've been putting off because I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered, or historically I couldn't be bothered to do anything hard. I couldn't be bothered to do anything that takes time for that payoff. Another thing worth pointing out is, since I have been in gambling recovery, it took a while before I could reduce my alcohol consumption, because that was in a way replacing that gambling addiction. But I haven't had a drink since the 6th of January, so we're coming on 2 months now. I've lost 2.5 stone, and I've been exercising an awful lot more. Again, these are all things that would have been impossible for me to have achieved immediately after a gambling addiction, because there would be, the alcohol was providing that instant hit that I was still craving, and the exercise again and the weight loss would have taken too long to achieve in order for me to get any kind of enjoyment, any satisfaction from it. I can now go for a 2-3 hour walk covering 15 kilometers, whatever. I'll go for a 2-3 hour walk and enjoy it. I can relax, because my brain is now less conditioned to needing an instant payoff. And then if I, every couple of weeks I weigh myself and I've lost a couple of 3 pounds or whatever, then I'm happy. I'm happy to wait longer for that payoff from my actions. So, in brief, yes, I totally get where you are. And the world as a whole can seem incredibly boring once you remove gambling from it, because you're used to those real highs and lows. It is, in a sense, and I'm going to tread very lightly here, and I'm only mentioning this because I have experience of depression, it is very similar in a way to being on antidepressants. When you suffer from depression, you suffer from highs and lows, particularly if you suffer from a form of manic depression, something like bipolar. You suffer from extreme highs and extreme lows. Now, antidepressants aren't designed to make you happy. What they're designed to do is chop off the top and the bottom extremes, so you have this, level of moderation in the middle where you don't have those extremes of highs and lows. I think of Blur sung in Country House, "It makes you feel welcomely bland." I think the line was, I probably misquoted Blur, sorry there, Damon. But that's almost exactly the same as eliminating gambling from your life. It eliminates the highs, it eliminates the lows, and you're left with that middle bit. Now, what you will find over time, and what you don't see initially, is that middle bit also has highs and lows, because life does. Life has positives, life has negatives, life has good days, bad days. But you require less of a high or a low in terms of brain chemicals, in order to get a bit of a kick. I have a good day now is when I have a successful day at work, when I manage to record a video and actually put it out there, when something moderately good happens. Maybe I set a new record for one of my walks. If you're still gambling, all of this sounds incredibly mundane. But trust me, over time you will get that satisfaction you get from gambling and from any addiction from something more constructive, something more positive. And I'll finish this video by saying what I always say, which is nothing I am saying is coming from a high horse. Nothing I am saying is coming from a point of do as I say, I am right, I am better because I'm recovering. I've mentioned so many times in my previous videos how many failed recoveries I've had, and the battle I've been through to be at this point today. And even at this point today, it's something that I'm not taking for granted. It's something I'm not getting complacent in, and it's something that I will never hopefully get complacent in, because I know what can happen. So listen to my experience, learn from it if you will, but know that I am not in any way talking down. I'm explaining that I've been there, and I know how dull and boring initially life can be. And I'll leave with one hopefully comforting thought. You say you've been 2 months gamble free, which is fantastic. I found that at 4 or 5 months, hopefully by the time lockdown's lifted, that I was starting to mentally adapt to life without gambling, and I was mentally getting enjoyment from really what I would previously would have conceived as mundane things, but what to most people are actually just things. Everyone take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay sane, and I will catch you on the next video. Thanks as always for your comments, keep them coming, and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Take it easy.